Hello and welcome to Quartic. This is episode 2 in our series CFA Level I 10 Topics in 10 Weeks. This week we look at topic number 2, Quantitative Methods or Quants. Quants accounts for 10% of the questions in the exam and is covered over 2 study sessions, Study Session 2 and Study Session 3. However, as many of the concepts covered here are required for other topics, example equity, fixed income, corporate finance, derivatives, and even alternatives, quant actually accounts for a larger proportion than 10%. As such, it should really be looked upon as one of, if not the most important topic within the CFA Level I program curriculum. Now, the first reading under Study Session 2 is reading 6, which is the time value of money. And it's one of those readings in which I would say you must master everything. This reading begins by introducing interest rates as a required rate of return, then looks at the time value of money. Present values and future values are linked by compounding and discounting. Understand both discrete and continuous compounding and discounting. Pay close attention to the differences between nominal rates and effective rates, and be able to convert nominal to effective and effective to nominal. The interest conversion function on your calculator is actually very useful here. If not, then you have to learn the complex formula. You've got to be able to discount annuities, perpetuities, as well as growing perpetuities. You can use the time value of money function on your calculator for annuities, but you've got to learn the formulas for discounting perpetuities, as no formulas are given in the exam. Again, I stress, this is not a reading that you skim through. This is a reading that you need to become thoroughly familiar with. The next reading under Study Session 2 is reading 7, Discounted Cash Flow Applications. Again, make sure that you learn the content inside out. NPV, IRR, holding period return, money and time-weighted return, as well as money market yields are all covered. Know everything, as these are all fundamental to investment analysis. The next reading is reading 8, Statistical Concepts and Market Returns. If you were scared stiff by statistics at school, or never studied statistics before, this reading provides a very good opportunity to prove that it's not so bad. Focus on going back to basics and learning the vocabulary of statistics, as well as the fundamental calculations. Know the difference between a population and a sample, measures of central tendency, so things like a mean, mode, median, and how they relate to each other. Know how to calculate an arithmetic mean, a geometric mean, and a harmonic mean, and also know when to use each one. Understand that measures of dispersion look at how data is spread around the central measure and provides a view of a risk. Know that the standard deviation, which is the most popular measure of dispersion, is the square root of variance, and be able to calculate variance from raw data using your financial calculator. In this reading, understand what is meant by a normal distribution. Skewness relates to its degree of symmetry, kurtosis relates to the thickness of the tails, and therefore the likelihood of extreme results occurring. Now, if statistics is your Achilles heel, ensure that you spend sufficient time on this reading because it's actually quite important. The final reading in Study Session 2 is Probability Concepts. Now, some of the examples can become complex, but you don't necessarily need to know everything in this reading. Areas to focus on would be the multiplication rule, the addition rule, joint probabilities, calculating expected values, and also portfolio standard deviation. Covariance and correlation are covered here, but if you don't learn it here, you've got an opportunity as it will come up again in portfolio management. So in a nutshell, from Study Session 2, you need to focus most of your energy on readings 6, 7, and 8, as the majority of what you learn there is actually going to be required elsewhere. Now, when it comes to Study Session 3, the majority of the content is not featured in any other topics in the exam, so bear this in mind when deciding how much time you dedicate, as it will not be the end of the world if you don't know every single minute detail of each reading. From reading 10, Common Probability Distributions, areas to focus on include the features of a normal distribution, and learn the key figures for confidence intervals, so 1.645, 1.96, 2.58 standard deviations, capturing 90, 95, and 99% of the distribution, respectively. Also become familiar with shortfall risk, Roy's safety first ratio, and in terms of the log normal distribution, it should really be sufficient to learn that it has a positive skew and is bounded to the left by 0. The next reading under study session 3 is reading 11, sampling and estimation. From this reading, understand central limit theorem, the concept of a sampling distribution, and know how to calculate the standard error, which can really be seen as the standard deviation of a sampling distribution. Understand the concept of a z-score or a t-score as being the distance from the mean. In other words, those measure how many standard deviations or standard errors we are away from the mean. Know that the use of a t-score is more appropriate than a z-score if the population variance is unknown and the sample size is small, meaning that it's less than 30. Reading 12 is all about hypothesis testing. For non-statisticians, this could be seen as a very daunting reading, but again, you do not necessarily need to know everything in this reading. Test of a population mean is the most important one, and so essential knowledge includes formulating the null and alternative hypotheses, computing the test statistic, knowing where to get your critical statistics from, that is either using your T or Z scores, or if you have to read them off T or Z tables, extracts will be given to you in the exam. Know the definitions of type 1 and type 2 errors, as well as the power of the test. Also understand the p-value, but don't delve too deeply into, lots of different calculations on that. The last section of the reading covers other tests. With these, we suggest that you know the basics. The name of the test really should be sufficient. Calculations are possible, but they're extremely unlikely. So you want to think about how much time you have. If you have lots of time, you can learn everything. But our advice really is, sometimes you have to pick and choose your battles when it comes to statistics. The last reading under study session 3 is technical analysis. If you get to this reading and you're short of time, the best strategy might just be to read the summary of the reading in the CFA program curriculum and then practice all the questions. You'll find that depth of knowledge is not really required here, just some basic definitions and calculations should suffice. That's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching. For free 7-day access to our Quartic online learning portal, get in touch by using the details that you see on the screen. Also follow us on Twitter @Quartic Training for access to more videos and useful resources.